Brand disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed by individuals on this platform, the callers plus invited guests, are their own. The information you hear does not reflect the overall views of all parties associated with this brand. We encourage everyone to research all things heard live or via archive for edification purposes. Discretion is advised.
Don't touch that dial. You're now listening to Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $SALSHOWTIME. Thanks for your support.
Hey, everybody. Shalom, shalom, mishpachah wa habarim. It's another debate talk for you. The segment, the second quarter. It's been a minute. I am Sister Shan-T, and with me, as always, will be my brother, B.A. Ben Abraham. I want to say shalom, shalom, mishpachah wa habarim. And I want to say, Kol tehelim, kol kabod wa hatiferet le Yahweh Abinu Eloheinu. That is all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, our Father, our Elohim, our power, our deity. Tonight, we'll be touching on a touchy subject, controversial subject, one that's been getting a lot of talk around the community, the community of faith online. Today's title will be called Pondering Polygyny. Does regulate equal endorse? Once again, the title is Pondering Polygyny. Does regulate equal endorse? And I'll get into further overview of that title. We would like to extend people to be able to call in with your questions, your concerns, your comments. The number to call in, which we encourage you to, is 563-999-3674. Again, 563-999-3674. Press 1 to talk. I know I was surprised to have to recite another telephone number to call in to Debate Talk for You. So that is the new number for this season, season 11 here. So with that being said, I would like to allow Brother B.A. to come on in, say a few words, and then we'll ask Sal if there's some announcements.
Greetings to all. This is B.A. Ben Abraham of the Sacramento, California. I'm just excited about this topic, and Most High willing, just for those who are willing to receive it. And I would just also like to say, when me and Shan-T, we get together, our primary source is the Word of God. It is the Bible. That is the source. And we have other sources to confirm what we're bringing out. So we have no issue with anyone agreeing or disagreeing or wanting to call in and critique and ask questions. That's good. But if you're going to have a problem with what we're bringing out, all we ask is that make sure that you have your sources to match our sources. And we can go from there. But with that, sis, the floor is yours.
Hallelujah. Thank you for being on, BA, as always. This is to provoke thought. This is to take this information, get it, bring it to the Most High in prayer, meditation, and fasting, and ask the Most High through the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, to bring you to a sound conclusion. Sal, do you have any announcements? And then I'll go into the lesson.
Yeah, once again, the number is 563-999-3674. Just to let the family know, we have a show tomorrow. Make sure you tune in tomorrow to Spiritual Food. Like you said, this is a hot topic, right? So that topic is going to continue tomorrow on Spiritual Food. And the title of that show, Hebrew Women, Sister, a man can't have more than one wife. So make sure you tune into that tomorrow, right here on Debate Talk Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Hosa mañana, Gabar. continue.
Okay. So the title of that show tomorrow is Can or Cannot
Oh, cannot.
Have. Okay, so the title is A Man Cannot Have More Than One Wife.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. All right, BA. I'm laughing in a good way. I've heard this topic since I've come into the Israelite community since about 2014, 2013, 2014, and I've heard all of the stances about it. I've heard the discussions. I've heard each side give their take and their perspective. However, I have not heard it. Not to say that it doesn't exist. However, I have not heard in this community the angle that I and BA are going to bring out tonight. The majority of this information I was looking at from a brother in the faith. He wrote a book called "Is God a Misogynist?" and his name is David Wilbur. And I thank the Most High Yahweh for this brother. He actually looked at some things within the language of the Hebrew Masoretic text to go into the passages that supposedly support polygyny. Right? So I want to look at it. I want to look at this subject from the angle of grammar, idioms, and euphemisms. All right? Grammar, idioms, and euphemisms. So polygyny. Polygyny pretty much is when one man or husband has more than one wife. He has at least two wives. You know, he may have more. And we see a lot of people in the Israelite community endorse this. And what I mean by endorse is that they say, okay, it's approved by the Most High Yahweh because they see stories in the text, various Hebrew men having multiple wives. They see Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, say, hey, you know, Israel had multiple wives, and because of those multiple wives, we're able to get the 12 tribes of Israel. So my question was, you know, does the Bible really endorse this just because, you know, we may see regulation? But the question is, does regulate equal endorse? Does regulate or monitoring something mean it's approved? We're going to focus on Leviticus 18:18, right? But let me get into this. BA, before I really deep dive, do you have anything to bring out?
You know, not this time, but I will say we just hope that for those who are listening to please take your notes and to, like Paul says, be slow to speak and be quick to listen. That means pay attention and listen thoroughly, because over the years, and I've been here for a very long time, it just seems to me that individuals in this community just want to respond or react to strike back instead of just understanding what's being brought out. An elder said to me a couple of years ago, disagree to understand. And I see less of that amongst the so-called anointed or those who call themselves Israel. But sis, go ahead.
All right. So after doing, before this research that I've done and I came across, I had the stance on polygyny that I'm not either for it or against it. And I was like, well, whoever wants to do it, if they can afford it, go ahead and do it. That's the stance that I was at. However, because I'm doing this lesson and because I came across this information prayerfully and I've examined this concept here through the grammar, through idioms, and through euphemisms, which I'll explain in definition in a hot second, I've come to the stance that Amiyan and Gabar show title for tomorrow is going to be. I've came to the conclusion so far now, based on the grammar, idioms, and euphemisms, that the Most High Yahweh does not endorse polygyny. I've come to the conclusion that the Most High Yahweh, through the Hebrew text, grammar, idioms, and euphemisms, does not endorse polygyny. Woo! Now, let's take a look at this. So, let me bring up something here. I'm going to be going back and forth on my phone, excuse me, and I have to get used to this phone because it's new. The word for the idiom, the definition for idiom, is a group of words established by usage as having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. So, in America over here, our culture is to have idioms, right? And also in the Hebraic culture, and within the language, there are idioms. So when you see a phrase or when you see a sentence of words, the meaning of those group of words is not to be taken literal, right? So when we say it's raining cats and dogs, well, we don't literally mean there's cats and dogs coming down from the sky. We mean that it's raining outside pretty rapid, hard, and it's just coming down at a forceful rate, right? We can also say things like, "Hey, BA gave me the directions to his house, and I look at the directions and I see it as a piece of cake." Well, when I say I see the directions as a piece of cake, I'm not literally talking about a sweet dessert that I'm going to eat. I'm referring to the directions that BA gave me to get to his house as being easy to follow, navigate, to arrive at his house. Those are idioms. Idioms are within the Hebraic Masoretic text, right? Euphemisms. There are also euphemisms in the Hebraic text as well. So euphemism, the definition, a mild or indirect word or expression substituted for one considered to be too harsh or too blunt when referring to something unpleasant or embarrassing, right? So the story of Eleazar, when Abraham tells Eleazar the servant to go find a wife for Isaac. Well, in that passage, there is a euphemism where it says, "Put your hand under my thigh." A lot of people, especially over here in America, the United States, our culture, we would look at that passage and say, "Hey, Abraham," we would say Eleazar literally took his hand and placed it under the fatty portion of the leg, which is the thigh. You know, we would say, "Hey, the servant literally put his hand on a thigh," the body part, right? However, that phrase is a euphemism. And I've heard a few brothers say, "Well, euphemism don't mean that," because the euphemism is actually a less harsher of a word used in place of a word that's actually meant there. So when Eleazar put his hand under the thigh, it wasn't the literal thigh. It was another body part. It was another body part on the male. Yes. Right? So that is euphemism. And euphemisms, now you can see why they're used. So we're going to talk about idioms and euphemisms here. All right, so go to Leviticus 18 and 18. We're just going to shoot right through this thing. BA, could you actually look at Leviticus 18 and 18, and go ahead and read that for me, please.
All right. Let me know. Can you hear me clear?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to read from Leviticus chapter 18, verse 18, and it reads, neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her, to uncover her nakedness besides the other in her lifetime.
And that was the KJV, right?
Yes, the KJV.
Okay. Can you read one more version for me? Leviticus 18:18 in the ESV, just for comparison.
All right. Most def. Let me get to him. All right. For a second. Let me see. My apologies. I have a lot of devices over here right now going on and off. So, you know what I mean? All right.
Sound like me earlier.
18. Yeah, man. I prefer the physical copies on certain things. And let's see. Actually, Leviticus 18:18 from the ESV, the English Standard Version, and it reads, and you shall not take a woman as a rival wife to her sister, uncovering her nakedness, while her sister is still alive.
The KJV and the ESV sound about the same. However, that's why we're going to go into the Hebrew text. We're going to read the Hebrew text there. And we're going to pay attention to a phrase. This is Leviticus 18:18, Masoretic text. This is Ve Israel akota lo tikak litzror legalot bata alecha bechayeha. So remember this. Ve Israel akota. Ve Israel akota. That's what we're going to focus on for Leviticus 18:18, right? But you know, we're talking about polygyny more so than polygamy. You know, we for the most part know that polygamy, you know, we don't see a woman having multiple husbands in the Bible, but we do see when Yeshua said, okay, when the woman at the well, she was like, yeah, I got, you know, he's not my husband, and then, you know, the Messiah was like, yeah, you know, the one that you live with is not your husband either. That's the instance that we see that, but we don't see necessarily the narratives for a woman having multiple husbands. We don't see too many narratives like that in the scripture. So we're just mainly talking about polygyny here, right? So, and then since we see so many stories where a lot of men in the Bible, kings, especially, we see them having multiple wives. So that's what we're talking about it. And so the question is, like, you know, is because that we see this practice in the Bible, does it mean that it's endorsed? You know, we know, like, from Genesis 2:24, there's a passage that says you're no longer two but one flesh. You know, and Yeshua in Matthew 19 cite Genesis 2:24, and then also Paul in Ephesians 5, he recites Genesis 2:24, right? So a lot of people pose the question, well, why doesn't the Most High Yahweh give any commandments prohibiting polygyny? You know, and I have to read Leviticus 18:18 because some people say, hey, they're taking the word sister to mean literal sister, right? But I'm going to put out some information that shows that when you see the men in the Bible having multiple wives, it is a deviation from the Most High's original plan for creation for human beings, for mankind, right? And Leviticus 18:18 through the grammar and the idioms, it does prohibit polygyny. And we also see that we're going to show some examples here and talk about. We do see that the narratives where a man or a husband has multiple wives is definitely discouraged because we see so much turmoil. We see so much turmoil and so much negativity, so much chaos when you see these stories. And we're going to show that there's some misunderstandings how people interpret certain passages that seem to endorse polygyny, right? So now, BA and I, we are believers in Yeshua. I know you hear me say that often, but I'm not gonna be ashamed of what I believe in. So I do believe in Yeshua. So I will be quoting a lot of what Yeshua says and a lot of what Paul says, because Yeshua and Paul, they definitely teach and adhere to the written law, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, right? So there's passages in 1 Timothy 3, where it's translated husband of one wife. However, when you look at the Greek, that's an idiom. It means one woman man. And when you're talking to a group of individuals in a room that are men and women, you would use the third person masculine singular word. So that phrase in 1 Timothy 3 is mias genaikas andras, one woman man. We could talk about that later. And also in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, Paul is saying, hey, everyone should have their own spouse pretty much. Man should have his own wife should have her own husband, right? So another thing I want to point out is in Matthew 19, in Matthew 19, verse 9, let me read it real quick. I'll read it from the KJV. These are just some things like when you read slow and let things simmer and marinate, you kind of ingest fully trying to be conveyed. So Matthew chapter 19, verse 9, this is Yeshua's words to the Pharisees, because they were questioning him, right? It says, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her, which is put away, does commit adultery. So one scholar, he would question, like, Yeshua would not call a divorced man's remarriage adultery, even if the divorce was not legitimate and he continued in the marital relationship to the first woman, if he was permitted a second wife. Right? We're going to talk about that a little further. A lot of people think the act of polygyny was permitted because of the human sin and the nature of the fallen world, right? So we're also going to talk about Deuteronomy 17, Deuteronomy 21. These are famous passages, especially about the kings, and especially about if a man has two women, two wives, one loved and one hated. We're going to talk about that. All right? Let's get to this first. Let's go back to Leviticus 18:18. So, BA in the KJV, read Leviticus 18:18 for me one more time, please.
All right. Read Leviticus 18 and 18.
Mm-hmm.
Neither shalt thou. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure. Neither shalt thou take a wife to his sister, to vex her, to uncover her nakedness besides the other in her lifetime.
When BA says take a wife to her sister, that is the literal of the Hebrew. Because in the Hebrew, the word Isha is it's wife or woman. Isha is wife or woman. Now the word akota is it's a pronominal suffix, possessive type word. Akot is sister, And when you want to say my sister, you say akoti. When you want to say her sister, there here is the third person feminine singular word, right? So the phrase a woman or a wife to her sister, in the Hebrew, it actually reads Isha el Akota. Isha el Akota. So literally, it would be a woman or wife to her sister. I'm going to show from comparing how this phrase is used in other passages that this is an idiom. And remember, I said what an idiom was. Idiom is a phrase not to be taken literally all the way, right? So, Isha el Akota. So, when I parsed out this passage here, it would be this. And a woman or wife, in addition to another, you shall not take or marry, to be adversary, rival, enemy, to have sexual intercourse with her, in addition to her, in her lifetime or while she is living. So, Isha el Akota, it means either a wife or woman in addition to another. I know you'll be like, oh my gosh, Shan-T, how? Why? No. Well, let's look at a few verses here. Examples. Remember the phrase, Isha el Akota. And in the KJV, it said pretty much, it said a wife to her sister, right? In the literal. BA, let's go to Exodus 26. Read verse 3 in the KJV. We'll just take the KJV for now. We don't have to do the ESV.
All right. Exodus 26. So we're going to pick it up at verse 3.
Yeah. This is when the Most High is giving instructions of how to fashion the tabernacle and the elements or different materials and things to make, right, for the tabernacle, right?
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So you want me to read just verse 3 or read verse 3 to 6?
Read verse 3 for now.
All right. The 5 curtains shall be coupled together one to another, and the other 5 curtains shall be coupled to one another.
All right. So it says the five curtains shall be coupled together. Watch this. One to another, and other 5 curtains shall be coupled one to another. So the phrase here in Exodus 26 and 3, one to another, when you read it in the Hebrew, Hamesh, Hadiot, 5 curtains, Tisyena, they shall become Horot, together. Watch this. Isha el Akota, one to another. Isha el Akota, one to another. All right. Let's do it.
I see.
You see. It's for anybody who's following along in the Hebrew, right? So in the Hebrew, Exodus 26, verse 3, for the phrase one to another, it is Isha el Akota. All right. BA, read Exodus 26, verse 6. KJV.
Verse 6. And it reads, and thou shalt make 50 taches of gold, and couple the curtains together with the taches, and it shall be one tabernacle. That's interesting.
You coupling things together to make a woman? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That sounds so
you
familiar.
Say anything? Go ahead.
This sounds so familiar with the beginning to me. Very familiar.
Mm-hmm. So the taches are hooks, right? So it says, and thou shalt make 50 hooks of gold, couple the curtains together with the taches, and it shall be one tabernacle, right? So in the Hebrew, Exodus 26, verse 6. This is Saf HaMishim Karsei Zahav. V'hibarta et Hario. That's the curtains again, right? So, and thou shalt make V'yasita HaMishim 50 Karsei Takis Zahav gold, right? V'hibarta, and couple et Hariot, and couple the curtains, Isha el Akota, one to other, one to about with another. So it's saying couple one set of the curtains hooks to the other. Isha el Akota, one to another. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 9, B.A.
Let's go to the prophets. Ezekiel. Chapter 1. We're going to pick it up at verse 9. And it reads, Ezekiel chapter 1 and verse 9. Their wings will join one to another. They turned not when they went. They went everyone straight forward.
Okay, say it again. Their wings were what? Their wings? Go ahead.
Their wings were joined. They were joined one to another. They turned not when they went. They went everyone straight forward.
All right.
So all in one.
So, right. So the living creatures who were round about in the vision here, right?
Exactly.
It says Hobrot joining. Right? You hear that word? You know what I mean? The root word is kabar, uniting and joining, right? Hobrot Isha elakota, one to another, kanfehem, their wings. So their wings, right, were joined one to another. Isha elakota. Isha elakota. And I got some company here. That's my dogs. But in the Hebrew, Isha elakota, one to another. All right? All right, so we're talking about wings here. We're talking about curtains here. We're talking about hooks here, right? And I know people's like, well, you know, how can you say because it's used, how can you say this because this phrase is used over here 3 times in one area, got to be used over here in one time in this area? Well, you could look at other examples of the masculine version of this phrase too. The masculine version of this phrase is used for when it's talking to literal brothers at times too. Let's go into some examples of that, B.A. Let's go to read Genesis 37, verse 19, real quick, in the KJV.
Genesis 37. Go ahead.
Genesis 37:19.
Yep. And it reads, hold on. Okay, yep, all right. 37? Oh, I'm in the wrong.
This is
36.
the episode of Joseph and his brothers, right?
Yep. And it reads,
all right,
in verse 19. And it reads, already. And they said to one another, behold, this dreamer cometh.
All right, read it one more time, slowly.
We'll read one more time. And they said to one another, behold, this dreamer cometh.
All right, so KJV, and they said one to another, behold, this dreamer cometh. Right? So, you know, in the Hebrew, it says Wayomeru, and they said, right, and they said, Ish el Akid. Ish el Akid. Ish is the word for what? Husband or man. Or in some cases, one. That's what we're seeing, right? One. Now, when you look at the Brown Driver and Briggs definition, it does say, for Ish, or Ish, it says man for number one. It says whosoever for number two, and it says each for an adjective. So each could be like one or any, right? Same with Isha. When you look at the word in the Hebrew, H802, and I don't disregard the Strong's. I know some people are like, I don't like the Strong's concordance. It's just about how you use it. It's about knowing how to use your tools. I don't disregard using the Strong's. I use the Strong's, but also the woman for Isha, it could be used as woman, wife, or female, and it could also be for what? Each or every. Each or every. It's a pronoun. Each or every. So Ish and Isha could be used for each and every. Each and every could be translated as one, O-N-E, right? Each is a one. So when you look at Genesis 37 and 19, and I know I'm going slow, but we're going to get into some things. Genesis 37 and 19. Wayomer Ish el Akiv, Yinei, Ba'al ha-chalamot alezeh ba. So pretty much, Wayomer, and they said, Ish, one, El, two, Akiv, another. Akiv, the root word is Ak. Ak means brother, right? And when you look at the word 251, H251, Ak means brother, right? So when you want to say my brother, you say Aki. You hear people say Aki. Aki is my brother. It's the pronominal suffix. It's the first person. Common singular, right? Aki. Pronominal suffix, possession type word. My brother. Now, when you want to say his brother, the third person, masculine singular, right? You have that yod wa, and so you would say Akiv. Akiv. It doesn't literally mean my brother here, even though they're brothers. It says, and they said, Ish el Akiv, one to another. So, Leviticus 18 in the Hebrew, verse 18. Isha el Akota, a woman or wife in addition to another. Right? You shall not take or marry adversary, rival, or enemy. And we're going to look at that word adversary, rival, or enemy, H6887. Right? To have sexual intercourse with her. Right? Why do I say to have sexual intercourse with her? Why am I translating that for to uncover her nakedness? I'll tell you. Here. Translating to have sexual intercourse with her for uncover her nakedness. Let's go here. When you go to the Leviticus 18 and 18, uncover the nakedness, it's legalot ervata. So legalot ervata. The root word of legalot, that infinitive construct, is galah. Galah is to uncover or remove, right? It's also, uncover, remove, nakedness. It could also mean carried away into exile, and it's Hickfield causative stem. And then ervata, the root word is erva, nakedness, nudity, shame, something indecent, improper behavior, right? The thing is, when you see galah next to erva, or uncovered nakedness, let's go here. Nakedness. The word represents male sexual organ, and when you look at Genesis 9 verses 22 to 23, where you got the narrative about Ham seeing the nakedness of his father, people are like, well, he just saw his father's, private parts. Well, we're going to see what that actually means. So when you look at the meaning of it here, this word is often used of female nakedness, the uncovered sex organs. But watch this. To uncover one's nakedness is a frequent euphemism for cohabitation. Let me say that again. To uncover one's nakedness is a frequent euphemism for cohabitation. And yes, I did get that information from the Strong's Concordance. Right? From the BDB. So when we're looking at Leviticus, for example, chapter 18, verse 6, and we'll talk further about that, the word nakedness, erva, chiefly a euphemism for cohabit. Now, what's the definition of cohabit? Well, let's look at it. Definition for cohabit, like the state of living together and having sexual relationships. A lot of times without being married. Let me say that again. Cohabitation, living together and having sexual relationships without being married. The word nakedness, especially when it's next to the word galah for uncovers, to uncover the nakedness. Uncover the nakedness is a euphemism for cohabitation, sexual relationship with somebody without being married. When we look at Leviticus 18, let me bring up something here. When we look at Leviticus 18, what you see in verses 6 to 17, you see a lot of verses that deal with kinship bonds or bonds between relatives, right? While verses like 18 to 23, you're seeing the verses prohibit sexual relations outside of kinship bonds. Right? I don't know if anybody's paid attention to that. The thing is, I've been reading. I haven't got to this part yet in the biblical Hebrew yet. However, then as I'm reading the Bible from beginning to end, but definitely reading this now, I'm looking at Leviticus 18 and I'm like, okay, I'm seeing a context. Verse 6 to 17 is talking about what's prohibited between kinfolk. And then verses 18 to 23, I've seen, okay, sexual relations. These are sexual relations that are prohibited for people who are not kinfolk, right? All right. Let's look at one more. Let's look at one more phrase or idiom for ish el akiv. Let's read one more. Exodus 16 and 15, BA, and then we'll move on.
All right. Exodus 16. Hold for a second.
Yep, Exodus 16, verse 15.
16, verse 15.
Yeah, we're going to look at it. Mm-hmm.
And it reads, and when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, it is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord had given you to eat.
All right. So this is the episode of the manna, right? It says when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna. All right? And you read the rest of the verse. the phrase in the Hebrew after they said one to another. That phrase, one to another, in the Hebrew is Ish El Akiv. Ish El. So if we were to take this literal, it would be a man or a husband to his brother, right? But this is the children of Israel here collectively seeing this substance come down from heaven, and they didn't know what it was, so they were talking one to another, right? One to another. Ish El Akiv, one to another. So, again, Leviticus 18:18 says, and a woman or wife, in addition to another, you shall not take or marry, to be adversary, rival, enemy, to have sexual intercourse with her. So uncover her nakedness is to have sexual intercourse with her. You should not touch a woman beside her or in addition to her in her lifetime while she is living. Anything you want to say before I move forward, BA?
Nah, sis, you're doing exceptionally well. Like I said, I'm sitting here learning myself.
All praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. Before I move forward, I want to remind everyone of the number to call in, and if you want to have a question, a comment, or a concern, you can call 563-999-3674. Again, 563-999-3674, and press 1 to talk. All right? Okay, so Leviticus 18:18 is to prevent rivalry between the two women or the two wives. All right. People say, well, as long as I don't, I've heard some guys say this, right? As long as I don't marry two literal sisters, I'm okay. I've heard that, right? But we see Sarah and Hagar, right? Sarah and Hagar. They had, their discrepancies, their differences amongst one another, and Sarah and Hagar were not literal sisters, right? They were not literal sisters, correct, B.A.?
No, they were not. They were not sisters.
Okay. And we don't see any indication in the text or the narrative that they possibly could have been literal sisters, right, B.A.?
No, there is nowhere pointing that direction, no subliminals, nothing behind the text, under the text, proving that these two sisters, these two women were sisters. Nothing proving it. There's nothing indicating it. Not even any type of speculation, neither.
Close my door. my dog can leave me be. All right, so the word in Leviticus 18:18 for rival, I said it was H6887, right? H6887. And I'm going to read it from the concordance here. Let's see. In the KJV it says vex, right? So the word is the root word is zarar, and it means one, to bind or be narrow, be in distress, cause distress. It can mean bind up, tie up, shut up. It could also mean show hostility towards, vex, harass, treat with enmity, right? So it's pretty much a primitive root to cramp, literally or figuratively, transitively or intransitively, adversary, be in affliction, besiege, bind up, be in or bring distress, be an enemy, oppress, right? So let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 1, B.A. I want you to read verses 1 to 6. 1 Samuel chapter 1 to 6.
1 Samuel chapter 1, We're going to start at verse 1. Now there was a certain man, Arathemiah, Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Joram, the son of Elihu, Elihu, and the son of Tuhu, the son of Zephan, and Ephraim. And he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had not children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Most High of hosts in Shiloh. And 2 sons of Eli and Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And when the time was that Elkanah offered, he gave to Peninnah, his wife, Peninnah, there you go, his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters portions. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah. But the Lord had shut up her womb. And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret because the Lord had shut up her womb.
All right, so Elkanah got 2 wives, one named Hannah, one named Peninnah. So, where does it say that? It says, verse 5, but Hannah, he gave a worthy portion because he loved Hannah. Right? She's the wife that's loved. But the Lord has shut up her womb. And in verse 6, so Hannah is still being talked about here. The subject here, Hannah, he gave a worthy portion. And her adversary. Whose adversary? Hannah's adversary. Also pervert her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. Now, when you look at this verse, in the Hebrew, and the word for adversary, it's Zarah. Zarah means distress, trouble, vexer, rival wife. And this comes from the Hebrew word 6862, which is Zar, meaning narrow, distress, adversary, foe, enemy, oppressor. That word comes from H6887. Again, the word we see in Leviticus 18:18, which means what? Show hostility toward, treat with enmity, vex, harass. Now, are Hannah and Peninnah, is there any indication in the narrative where these 2 women are literal sisters?
No, there's nothing that mentions it. Very interesting. I wonder who will be the adversary in this case. I wonder.
The adversary is who it says it was. Pretty much, the adversary is who?
Man, I would think it's the
Peninnah.
other individual. Exactly. Wow.
Why? Why is Peninnah called the adversary? Because Peninnah was the one to provoke Hannah. Because Hannah's womb was shut up, and Peninnah had children.
But you know what's interesting? Let me read the top part of verse 5. But unto Hannah he gave a worthy portion. And it says in parentheses, for he loved her, but the Lord has shut up her womb. So that also can provoke someone to come against her, because this man because the text says that the father of Samuel, he loved Hannah. He actually really, really appreciated her. So that could cause some jealousy on somebody else's end. Just wanted to say that real quick.
Yeah, rivalry. That's what it causes, BA. That's what the text is saying here. It's causing a rivalry here.
Exactly.
Now, the reason why I brought this up, and what I'm going to bring up, the reason I brought this up is because some people say, hey, well, I look at Leviticus 18:18, and as long as I'm not marrying 2 sisters, I'm cool. Or as long as I'm not marrying two different women so they could vex each other, then I'm cool. Well, you got one woman loved and you got one woman not so loved here. It doesn't show any indication here that Hannah and Peninnah were biological full sisters or even half sisters. She's two different women. And Hannah and Peninnah is pretty much called Hannah's adversary. I know some people are going to look at this narrative and say, hey, man, the Most High, he didn't punish nobody. He didn't punish nobody, and, since I'm not marrying literal sisters, then I'm cool. Well, look at Leviticus 19 and 29. I'm not going to go into thorough reading it, but I just want to make a point here. In the KJV, it says, do not prostitute thy daughter to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. Now, people can read that verse and be like, yo, as long as I'm not making my daughter a prostitute, I can make my niece or my auntie or my mama a prostitute. Because it don't literally say niece, mama, auntie, you know what I mean? But just because the Bible here doesn't say verbatim, do not prostitute thy mother, or do not prostitute thy auntie, or do not prostitute thy niece, do we have to see this verse here verbatim say that to not make any woman of Israel a prostitute?
I agree
right?
with you 100%. I agree. Common sense would tell a person this would be including all the women of Israel, not just the literal daughters of a couple or a husband and wife. This goes for all the women of Israel.
I want to bring up one more thing in Leviticus 19 to go along with this point I'm making here. Let's see. One more, if I can get to it. Verse 17. Verse 17. Leviticus 19, verse 17. In the KJV, it says, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor and not suffer sin upon him. Well, some people would say, hey, because there's no punishment, no literal verbatim punishment in the Bible, when someone does hate their brother, then it's okay for me to hate the brother, right? But just because something is regulated, just because something is here, like you shall not hate your brother in your heart, and you don't see, a punishment for it, doesn't mean that hating your brother is now allowed, right? B.A., do you, out of any of your Bible reading, have you seen any punishment for when people hate their brother? Have you seen any punishment? Had to bring a sacrifice for, hating their brother?
I haven't seen it, but one thing I would say is this: when it comes to Leviticus, in verse 1, it's very clear. I'll just read chapter 1 and verse 1, just the top part of verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, and I'll say read verse 2, speaking unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. So if the Most High is telling you not to hate your brother, there's a reason why. And if he tells you not to do something or to do something, it's best for us to take heed to the commandment that comes out of the mouth of the Most High. I would just go that far. That's as far as I'll go.
Yeah. And
so,
also, just to go along with the point, just because there's silence on the subject matter, in the Bible does not mean it doesn't exist or that it's condoned. A lot of people say, okay, well, the text is silent on this, or, Yeshua didn't mention this, or Paul didn't say that. They're using an excuse or a reason of silence as saying that something doesn't exist or that is not condoned. Well, the Bible is not a verbatim book, and the Bible pretty much we can see put pertinent narratives in here. You know what I mean? The books that are in the Bible or composed in the Bible, they are there for a purpose, and they're there to serve their purpose, right? All right.
I agree. I would just add real quick. The Bible is not a verbatim book based on your 21st century indoctrination either.
Mm.
We see a lot of that going on in Israel. But I'll rest my case. Go ahead.
All right. So, let's move forward here. So, like I said, because we don't verbatim see, just because in the Bible we don't verbatim see a legal punishment for hating a brother, despite, Leviticus 19 and 17 saying, don't hate your brother in your heart, it's like the Torah, Torah likewise, it gives no punishment for breaking his law. Yeah, so nobody's going to suggest that the legal punishment missing here for transgressing the commandment of not to hate your brother invalidates that, right? So yeah, what is it? Genesis 4, we see Lamech, the first instance of polygyny there, and they definitely were not people of the Most High. They were definitely not people that the Most High approved of, right? Yeah, we can see that, and
oh man,
go ahead.
No, I was just saying, man, I agree. Like, oh man.
Yeah, and then
but
Abraham, like I said, with Sarah and Hagar, they were not literal sisters, but Hagar was sent away with her son Ishmael because Ishmael was mocking Isaac. Isaac was the son of the promise, right? And then in Genesis 21, the Most High said, "Hearken to your wife, Abraham." So Abraham was told to hearken to Sarah, right? We see Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. We see his narrative. Where his wives were constantly in some sort of contention, strife, deceiving Jacob, pretty much using mandrakes to play craps to have their time with him, right? I mean, you're right.
Yeah, Jacob had to be wore out, boy, I tell you.
Right. Right. It's mentioned in Judges 8, or Gideon. He had a lot of wives. Gideon had a lot of wives, and in the book of Judges, we see a good theme of that. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. But a lot of the times, the author would put these stories in here to pretty much show that something is. It's not the best situation to be in or want to get in, But Gideon had a lot of pride, and we see Abimelech, who was one of the sons, right? He murdered 70 of his siblings. Like he saw in Judges 9. And Abimelech, yes, he was one of Gideon's, but he was the son of the concubine. And the 70 sons were children of the quote-unquote legit wife. Right, so you see, there's a lot of sibling rivalry as well when it comes to the progeny of these polygynous relationships, right? Let me read something here. The Essenes. I want to read what the Essenes interpreted Leviticus 18 and 18 as real quick here. I want to do that. So the Essenes, they were in the Qumran community. They are definitely known for the Dead Sea Scrolls. They have this document called the Damascus Document, and the Qumran community, who are known as the Essenes, they always charge their opponent with committing various sins, and we know their major opponent was the Pharisees, right? And the Damascus Documents reads about Genesis 1 and 27, it says, "They are caught in two traps. fornication by taking two wives in their lifetimes, although the principle of creation is male and female, he created them. So that is what the Qumran community believes about Leviticus 18:18. They see it as the Most High not condoning a man or a husband having more than one wife. Right? Okay. So let's continue here. We're almost done, actually. We're going to look at the passages condone polygyny now. So let's run through this, BA. Let's run through this. Let me get my notes. All right. Concubine. The term concubine, Pilagesh, refers to, sometimes the term concubine refers to a legit wife whom a man marries after the death of his first wife. So Keturah, remember, Keturah is called Abraham's wife in Genesis 25, but she's called his concubine in 1 Chronicles chapter 1 and verse 32. I'm not going to read that, but that's just for your reference to go back to. And the concubine was somebody who, voluntarily offered herself as a maidservant for the man's sexual pleasure or to bear children. But in the ancient world, we know that a concubine did not have the same legal status as a full and legit wife, right? So in concubinage definitely is painted in a negative light right alongside polygyny, right? So some of the passages that seem to condone polygyny because they're regulated or they look like to be regulated, we're going to go there. So BA, please read Exodus chapter 21, verses 7 to 11.
And just to let you guys know, we got a caller standing by. Just to let you guys know, we got a caller standing by when everyone is ready.
Okay, actually, let's do that. Let's take the caller, Sal. You
All
mind?
right, let's go to the phone lines. The number is 563-999-3674. Let's go to 706. You're live.
Shalom, shalom, family.
Shalom.
Shalom, sister.
Greetings.
This is
Greetings to you.
Greetings. So I was just calling because I'm just deeply edified all the time, every time I tune into the show. So I just want to say, definitely, Sister Shan-T, this is a dope lesson. This is a dope lesson. And I really appreciate the edification. It's been a while since I heard you all, but I'm loving what I'm hearing.
This voice sounds familiar, but I know who you are now. Go ahead.
But I was just calling because I just had to say that it was never meant for a man to have another wife. That's what I'm tracking correctly.
Yeah. According to the text, according to the grammar, according to what we see as idioms or phrases that are not to be taken literally, definitely the passage is saying a man or a husband is not to have more than one wife.
Okay. Yeah, because I like when you were breaking down when they referred to adversary and how it's the same verbiage. Actually, not verbiage, but it's actually the same meaning. So I thought that was really, really dope. And I'm flipping through these pages trying to cook, and I'm just like, oh man, I got to run back to I got to see this. So it's very edifying. So I'm tracking. I'm loving it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Phenomenal job as usual.
All praise to the Most High. All praise to the Most High. Thank you for listening in. And it's awesome when someone says they're edified already. We're only halfway through the lesson. You know what I mean? But it's always good to hear from you, Sis Yahara. We definitely got to talk again. Definitely got to get you on another lesson again. It's always good to have your spirit around. I can hear you smile through your talking with me. That's awesome, right? So.
Yeah, I miss y'all. Most definitely, I'd be more than happy. You guys are a blessing. So keep up the good work as usual for the edification of the body. So wonderful job.
Hallelujah.
Praise Hashem.
I appreciate your call. Yeah, BA.
No, I was just saying praise Hashem. And appreciate the caller calling in and sharing those words. It's always good to hear when people receive their information, and that's how I know that the sister was actually paying attention. She was listening. So,
right.
And let's most high willing, let's continue on and hope for the best.
Hallelujah. All right. BA, Exodus, chapter 21, verses 7 to 11.
Exodus 21. We're going to pick up at verse 7. And it reads, "And if a man sell his daughter to be a maid servant, she shall not go out as the men servants do." Verse 8, "If she pleases not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed, to sell her unto a strange nation. He shall have no power, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her." Verse 9, "And if he has betrothed her unto his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, her duty of marriage shall he not diminish, rather. Verse 11, "And if he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out free without money."
Let's see something here. So, this passage is about selling, or it concerns the selling of a young woman to a family, as a wife intended for either the man or for his son, right? In a kind of like servitude type of arranged marriage for a family that's like destitute and needs a daughter provided for, right? Let's see, verse 10. Exodus 21, verse 10. This is the kicker right here. It says, "If he take him another," in the KJV, italicizes the word wife. Now, sometimes the italicized words are not there and they are added for contextual understanding. However, when you're adding wife here and italicized, like, wait a minute, you could be adding something to the context that's not there. And these are things that are good to look out for, especially if you're going to read the KJV, right? So when people read this verse right here, when it talks about the man taking another wife to himself, it's assumed that this refers to another wife in addition to the young maidservant mentioned previously in the passage, right? So these laws pretty much right here in Exodus 21, it seems like it, however, it has nothing to do with polygyny at all. And these laws are regarded as what's to be done when an engagement falls through. So to sum it up, if the master decides not to marry the maidservant, the first solution is that she can be redeemed or brought back. Alternatively, she and the master's son could get married, right? So let me say that again. If the master decides not to marry the maidservant, then the first solution is that she can be redeemed, and alternatively, she and the master's son could get married. So if that happens, the master is to treat her not as a servant, but as his daughter. So, and if she's not redeemed, if she doesn't marry the master's son, and if the master decides to marry someone else other than her, the master is still required to meet her basic needs. So if he doesn't provide what she needs, the maidservant is able to leave and be a free woman, right? And then also we see when it says in verse 10 of Exodus 21, it says her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage. Duty of marriage shall he not diminish. Now, in the Hebrew, the word for duty of marriage, that word is ona, H5772. Now, this is the only place here where this word is defined as cohabitation or conjugal right. And in the Strong's, it would say to dwell together, cohabitation. So they're presuming here that if somebody's dwelling together, then they must be cohabitating, right? However, let's look at something here. So when people argue that the maidservant's marital rights or duty of marriage, her master must provide her conjugal rights, they think that or equate that to sexual pleasure. And they're thinking that this involves polygyny, right? In the beginning of the verse, it says, if he takes him another wife. So a lot of people say, okay, a lot of people are presuming or assuming he already has a wife. It doesn't necessarily say here that he already has a wife because the word another is used. It could be someone other than. When you say another, it could be someone other than, right? But the Hebrew word for ona, as we see, the Hebrew word for ona, 5772 in the Strong, is translated as marital right. But like I said, that's the only place that is found in the entire Bible used in that pronunciation, right? Ona, or in this usage. Right, so some scholars say that the word is associated with the idea of habitation or dwelling, which could be ma'on or me'ona. For example, if you look at Deuteronomy 33 and 27, you look at Deuteronomy 33 and 27. Let me go there real quick. It says, the eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms, and he shall thrust out the enemy from before thee, and shall say, destroy them. So the eternal God is thy refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. So God is a dwelling place. Let me see here the Hebrew for where is it? A refuge, me'ona, 4585, right? So when you look at Deuteronomy 33 and 27, and you look at the word me'ona, 4585, it'll say it's a dwelling or habitation, right? It's a dwelling or habitation or dwelling place of God. Then that word will say, okay, it's from H4583. And when you go to H4583, that is my own. And my own, the definition of the BDB in the Strong's is a dwelling or habitation, a refuge, a dwelling. It could be the abode of God's tabernacle or men in their home or animals in their lair, right? Now, this word, 4583, goes back to H72, which is ona. 5772 ona. That's the word we see in Exodus chapter 21, verse 10 for a conjugal rights and cohabitation, right? But everywhere else we've seen the what words come from this root mean a dwelling, right? Doesn't necessarily mean somebody's giving sexual pleasures here. So what we can see from this is that in Exodus 21, the master pretty much, this woman here, are provided some quarters or shelter in the view here, right? That went along with what I summed up. If a master decides not to marry this maidservant, then the master's son could marry her, and if the master's son marry her, then the basic needs are provided, right? What's the basic needs we always talk about here in America? Food, clothing, and shelter. So this ona could be the dwelling or the shelter. Not necessarily conjugal rights, not necessarily sexual pleasure. All right? Now, I'm not saying I'm perfectly correcting this. I'm just saying take this information back to the Most High and examine it. All right? Let's look at something else here, BA. Let's look at Deuteronomy. Let's look at Deuteronomy 21. Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 to 17.
15 through 17. All right, Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 through 17. Okay, I'll pass it. Verses 15, it reads, if a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be when he maketh his son to inherit that which he hath, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he hath, for he is the beginning of his strength, and the right of his firstborn is his.
All right. So a lot of people take this passage and say, okay, this is a regulation of polygyny right here. That means it's condoned. That's what they say, right? The thing is, it starts off with a condition because there's the word if there in verse 15. Deuteronomy 21, verse 15. If this happens, right? Well, it details the inheritance right of who's considered the firstborn, the firstborn of the woman who's loved, or the firstborn of the woman who's less loved. Now, when we look at the word hate in the text, the Hebrew word is shan. It means to hate, one hating, an enemy, to be hated of persons, nations, right? To hate, enemy, foe. And usually this means loved less. Usually it means loved less. Right? You're loved less. Right? So in this here passage, people say, okay, polygyny is okay because it's regulated here, right? But Torah, what we see, it also provides laws of restitution to, provide such as if people are stealing, right? But just because there's a law in place addressing negative consequences for stealing doesn't mean that the law, it doesn't mean that the existence of the law legitimizes stealing, right? So, for example, like Deuteronomy 23 and 18, right? Deuteronomy 23 and 18, it forbids a prostitute's wages from being used, vow payment or temple payment, but the existence of this law does not legitimize prostitution. So just because this instance here in Deuteronomy 21 existed doesn't mean it legitimizes it. Right? Let's look at, to go along with what I'm saying, let's look at Deuteronomy 31 verses 16 to 30. Let me look at that real quick. Deuteronomy 31 verses 16 to 30. Let's see. Let's see.
You said 31, 16 through 30?
Yeah. Yeah, 16 to 30. I want to read this. I want this to be read because a lot of times the Most High puts in place things knowing what our minds are going to do, knowing what our hearts are geared towards. There's already a way that the Most High is going to deal with our hard head and our stiff neck and our rebellion. But just because the Most High has embedded a way to deal with our hard head and stiff neck and rebellion doesn't mean he's wanting us to do the rebellious thing. And this is why I'm going to Deuteronomy 31, starting at verse 16. Because this is the thing. Just because this is here doesn't mean the Most High wanted. Like, for example, we wanted a king. And we got a king. But the Most High regulated that as well. We're going to look at that. I mean, not regulated that, but the Most High put in place something to deal with what he knew we was going to do because of our rebellious heart. Okay, so go ahead and read Deuteronomy 31, starting at 16, BA, and read all the way to verse 30.
All right, here we go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, and this people will rise up and go a-whoring after the gods of the strangers of the land whither they go, to be amongst them, and will forsake me, and break my covenant which I have made with them. Verse 17. Then my anger shall be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be devoured, and many evils and troubles shall befall them, so that they will say in that day, Are not these evils come upon us because our God is not among us? Verse 18. And I will surely hide my face in that day, for all the evils which they shall have wrought, and that they are turned unto other gods. 19. Now therefore, write ye this song for you, and teach it to the children of Israel, put it in their mouths, that this song may be a witness for me against the children of Israel. For when I shall have brought them into the land, which I swear unto their fathers, that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves and waxed fat, then will they turn unto other gods and serve them, and provoke me and break my covenant. And it shall come to pass, when many evils and troubles are befallen them, that this song shall testify against them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten out of the mouths of their seed, for I know the imaginations which they go about even now, before I have brought them into the land which I swear. 22.
Pause real quick. Pause. The Most High said, I know their imagination which they go about even now, before I brought them into the land. Right? He knows our wandering mind and how we're going to get. Keep going, BA. Verse 22.
22. Moses, therefore, wrote this song the same day and taught it to the children of Israel. And he gave Joshua the son of Nun a charge and said, Be strong and be of good courage, for thou shalt bring the children of Israel into the land which I swear unto them, and I will be with thee. Ain't that something? He told him to be of good courage, because it's going to take his courage to lead these people, to lead them. I'm telling you. 24.
Right.
Yeah, Israel, man, I'll tell you, ain't that something? 24. And it came to pass, when Moses had made an end of the writing, the words of this law in a book until they were finished, that Moses commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, Take this book of the law and put it in the midst of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. For I know thy rebellion. Look, ain't that something? For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, I am yet alive with you this day. Ye have been rebellious against the Lord, and how much more after my death? Moses, gather unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words in their ears and call heaven and earth to record against them. For I know that after my death, this is Moses, ye will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way, El Direct, right? which I have commanded you, and evil will befall you in the latter days, because you will do evil in the sight of the Most High, to provoke him to anger through the works of your hands, your thoughts or your actions, rather. Verse 30.
Come on.
And Moses spake in the ears of the congregation of Israel the words of the song until they were ended.
See, this is why the Most High got to put Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 to 17 in place, because of Deuteronomy 31, verse 27. For I know thy rebellion and thy stiff neck. Behold, why I am yet alive with you this day. This is Moses talking right here, right? You have been rebellious against the Lord. You have been rebellious against the Lord, and how much more after my death? Verse 29. I know, for I know that after my death ye will utterly corrupt yourselves and turn aside from the way. You will turn aside from the instructions. You will turn aside from the teaching commanded you, and evil's going to befall you in the latter time. This is why Deuteronomy 21, verses 15 to 17 got to be put in play. This also right here shows why Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 to 20 got to be in play. Let me get that one, B.A. Let me read that one, and then I'm going to have you read 1 Samuel 8, 1 and 9. 1 Samuel chapter 8. I'm going to have you go there after I read this. So I'm going to read Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 to 20. I'm going to read from the KJV, verse 6. When thou art come into the land which the Lord your God giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shalt say, I will set a king over me, all the nations that are about me, then shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. Right? I want to pause real quick. Let me see. Okay. Verse 16. It says, when thou come into the land which the Lord your God giveth unto thee, and shall possess it, you're going to say, I will set a king over me, right? The Most High saying in verse 15, okay, when you get a king, set one of your brothers as king over you, right? Verse 16. But he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord has said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Verse 17, neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away. Neither shall he greatly multiply himself silver and gold. Now, I read this passage because, the Most High pretty much said here, hey, when you ask for a king, right, look at what we read in Deuteronomy 31. I know your rebellion. I know your stiff neck. I know your neck, your hard-headedness, right? I know it now. So let me say Deuteronomy 17, verses 14 to 17. Most High is putting this here too. Most High knew when we came into the land, this is what we was going to do. Why? Because we was going to turn away from the way. Right? Now, a lot of people go here, Deuteronomy 17, especially verse 17, right? And they'll say, hey, they'll say this is just a prohibition against marrying an excessive number of women, but implicitly permitting polygyny for kings on a what you call moderate level, right? That's what they'll say. The thing is this. Watch this. In Deuteronomy 17, verse 18, right? It says, and it shall be when this king sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book out of that which is before the priests, the Levites, and it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes, to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left. That means go straight, right, to the end, that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. So guess what? When you get this king, right? When you get this king is to follow Torah. To the point where the king got to write down Torah. And if the king write down Torah and read it every day, of course he's going to come across Leviticus 18 and 18, right? What do we say Leviticus 18:18 parsed out and translated to be? When we look at Isha el Akota as the idiom that it's given when you cross-reference, right? Leviticus 18:18, the king is going to come into this passage, right? And a woman or a wife, in addition to another, you shall not take married to be adversary, rival, enemy, to have sexual intercourse with her, in addition to her or beside her in her lifetime while she is living. Since the king's righteous behavior was to serve as an example to the nation of Israel, it's reasonable to conclude that Deuteronomy 17:17, pretty much endorses the prohibition against polygyny, right? And the intent of these, since the intent of these commandments was so that the king wouldn't think too highly of himself or get too prideful of thinking he's superior to his brethren, the Israelites, and think of himself as above the Most High's law. The language used in verse 17 to, quote unquote, not acquire many wives for himself ought to be understood in that light. So if the intention of the verse was to prohibit all polygyny, some might say, hey, it should be clearer, right? But the thing is, well, there's an undeniable right here to remarry following a divorce or the death of a spouse. However, the expression as it is in Deuteronomy 17:17 is adequate. It's enough, right? Anything you got to add, BA, before I move on to what I'm going to have you do?
It's all good.
All right.
It's all good.
Now, this is linked. What BA is going to read, 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 9. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 9. Watch this. And you'll see something as to why we brought out Deuteronomy 17, starting at verse 14. The Most High said, hey, when you ask for a king, why? Because of Deuteronomy 31. Because I know you're going to turn away from the way. 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 9, B.A.
This is a good one. And it reads, and it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. And his sons walked not in the ways, but turned aside after lucre, and took bribes and perverted judgment. All the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, Behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. Wow. Verse 6. But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Most High, or the Lord, said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people, and all that they say unto thee, for they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them. Verse 8.
Say that one more time, B.A. Say that one more time. Verse 7.
That I should not reign over them. He said they rejected him. Verse 8. According to all thy works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me and served other gods. So do they also unto thee. Now therefore, hearken or listen unto their voice. Howbeit, yet protest solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of the king that shall reign over them. Wow.
All right, so when you start reading from verse 10 on down, you'll see how having a king over Israel was going to, be a little bit, difficult for some of the people of Israel, right? But in verse 7, the Most High said to Samuel, look, hearken unto the voice of the people, because they have not rejected you, they are rejecting me. The people of Israel rejected the Most High Yahweh from being their king. The Most High said they have rejected me, that I should not be king over them. The Most High knew this was coming. Deuteronomy 31. It don't mean he condoned it. It just means he know our rebellious way. He know our stiff neck and a hard heart. Let me read Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 to 10. Now, this is where we're talking about the law of the levirate marriage. Let me read this, B.A., real quick. Deuteronomy 25. Yeah. We're going to talk about this a hot second. Deuteronomy 5.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 25, verses 5 to 10.
I don't see too many brothers in favor of this one. Oh, boy.
Right? Yeah, we see this. We see this. Right? I'm bringing up the majority of passages they use, or some sisters too, in favor of polygyny being condoned, right? So they'll use this, Deuteronomy 25, verse 5 says, if brethren dwell together and one of them die and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then let his brother's wife go up to the gate unto the elders and say, my husband's brother refuseth to raise up unto his brother a name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of my husband's brother. Then the elders of the city shall call him and speak unto him, and if he stand to it and say, I like not to take her, then shall his brother's wife come unto him in the presence of the elders, and loose his shoe from off his foot, and spit in his face, and shall answer and say, so shall it be done unto that man that will not build up his brother's house. And his name shall be called in Israel the house of him that hath his shoe loosed. And we know that's the idiom for you, right? Right, but this is the thing, B.A. So this is the levirate marriage, right? And we see this just a couple of times pretty much between Tamar and Ruth. In both of these cases, right, Tamar and Ruth, they were remarried to men who did not already have a wife. Because we don't see no indication in the narrative here that they already had a wife, do we? B.A.? We don't see that.
Nah, we don't see it.
Right. So this is, and I'll show why. I'll show why we don't see it here. And we'll show why that we could say that these men were not already married. We could show that these men did not already have a wife, right? So this law has clear exemption, right? Even if they are not explicitly stated. So like when Tamar's husband Onan died, she was told to remain a widow until the brother Shelah was old enough that could be with her. But an exemption for the age is never stated in the law, right? The exemption for the age is never stated here in this levirate marriage law. So since the Torah prohibits polygyny, especially in Leviticus 18 and 18, right? Isha Elokota, we can reasonably conclude that this law exempts married relatives from this duty. This is why I set up with the foundation of Leviticus 18:18, showing that Isha Elokota means a woman or wife in addition to another. That's why I started with that, right? Now, it's the rare exception to the rule permitted only in extreme circumstances, right? It could be compared to the principle that breaking the Sabbath is allowed in order to save the life of a person or an animal, right? you know, in the instance of like a levirate marriage, it could argue that it's permitted, you know, in a rare situation come about, right? That's rare. Very, very rare. The Most High would definitely not promote someone's command that he gave. But, you know, we can compare sometimes, you know, breaking of the Sabbath, pretty much, quote unquote, to save the life of a person. I don't really call that breaking the Sabbath. If you're saving the life of a person, that actually goes along with, you know, loving your neighbor as yourself. Some things just call for that, right? Another example is Numbers 12 and 1. Can you read that for me, PA? Numbers 12 and 1.
Numbers 12 and 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hold on for a second. Get to it.
This is another passage that people use to try to support polygyny. And I'll show you how.
Numbers 12.
Numbers 12, verse 1.
We're looking at verse 1. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for had married an Ethiopian woman. For he had married an Ethiopian woman. And
right.
They said, I'm sorry, yeah, keep going or stop there.
Yeah, you stop there. So
okay.
It's suggested here that Moses was into polygyny because they're assuming that Moses' wife, Zipporah, who was a Midianite, is different than the Cushite woman in Numbers 12 and 1, right? So Zipporah, the Midianite, yeah, she's mentioned in Exodus 2, Exodus 4, of course, right? Zipporah, the Midianite, people think she's different than the Cushite woman in Numbers 12 and 1 here, right? But check this out. There's a scholar, John Rias, right? It says it's more than likely that the Cushite woman refers to Zipporah herself, right? Because it says, he writes, it is possible that Zipporah, the Midianite, was also designated a Cushite because Midian included part of northwest Arabia, where some Cushite tribes lived. So furthermore, she may have been called a Cushite because her complexion may have been darker than that of most Israelites.
Oh,
right?
No. You said Moses was married to a daughter of Ham?
Man. That's what it says.
Where's the alarm?
Hey, but you know, a lot of the different tribes of, you know, the sons of Israel, they did not marry Israelite women, you know, for the most part.
Man.
Okay, that's a different day. That's a different day to talk about that. Okay.
Yeah, because we got people who play semantics there forever.
Right. No, we can't do that today.
Not today. Ain't too much time. Ain't enough hours in the day for that one.
Yeah. We don't have time. We don't have time for that today, cuz. We don't have time for that today, cuz. Okay. So the conclusion that John Rias came to, it can be confirmed from reading Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 7. In Habakkuk 3, verse 7 says, I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. Cushan is what? It's from Cushan means their blackness. The definition of Cushan is also a place in Arabia or Mesopotamia. To you. So it says, I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Right? So another author or historian and scholar, John Walton, he points out that Cushan and Midian occur in synonymous parallel ism in this verse here that I read in Habakkuk chapter 3, right? It suggests that the terms refer to the same reason. So this definitely gives credence to the identity that the Cushite woman who was Zipporah, and that the Cushite woman was also the Midianite woman, that is Zipporah. That's one woman. One woman, B.A. Okay, B.A. Go ahead.
Let me just say this real quick. Now, we understand in the Torah or in the wilderness, the Most High only spoke to one individual, and that's Moses, face to face. I highly doubt that the Most High, the supreme intellect, was talking to Moses if he had two wives. I highly doubt that.
Especially since we see what Leviticus 18 and 18 says, right?
Exactly.
Yes, let's go to King David. Because we know a lot of people want to use King David, boy.
They use, that's when all else fails, go to David. Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to get through this hopefully in the next half an hour. But again, remind y'all, 563-999-3674. 563-999-3674 is the number to call in. Press the 1 to talk. Address your concerns. If you have any comments or questions, we love them. All right? So it's argued that King David, because he was a man after God's heart, that he practiced polygyny. And people say, oh, okay, so since David was a man after God's own heart, then God must approve of the polygyny, the practice of it, right? That's what people say. Let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 7 to 8, B.A. You there, B.A.?
Chapter 12? Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
Yeah, I have my phone muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem.
So, 2 Samuel chapter 12.
Uh-huh.
What verse?
7 and 8.
Verse 7, and it reads, And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man that saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives, into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given thee such and such things.
All right. So, right. A lot of people say you use the part where it says in verse 8 here in 2 Samuel chapter 12. They use this phrase, and I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and Judah. So they'll use this phrase. They'll use the passage that says, "Hey, David was given by the father his master's house and his master's wife." And then they'll also use a little bit more. It says, "I would, if that were too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. I would add to you as much more." Right? This is a question. Why, when we read this passage, do we assume that the Most High giving Saul's wives to David means that David married them? Why do we assume that when we read this passage, B.A.? See, this is what I'm doing is slowing us down, getting us to marinate and simmer a little bit and critically think. I'm giving us a way to critically think here when we take our time. We're assuming here that God's giving Saul's wives to David means that David married them. So watch this. It's more than likely, B.A., that when the Most High gave Saul's house and wives into David's arms, it meaning the estate being transferred to David's care. Because the woman is the estate. The house. Just like Judah in Israel at this time, they were two separate houses. So David, like you said, B.A., was called by the Most High to be a steward. There's nothing here that indicates marriage at all.
Exactly. The rulers or the kings of Israel were just stewards. You know what I'm saying? For them to be king, they had their, I don't want to say privileges, they had privileges. But at the same time, they were stewards over, just think about, look at it from this perspective. If David is the king over Israel, does that also mean that he has access to all of Israel's wives?
Come on.
Think about that.
Think about it.
Think about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I see people use this as an argument to justify having more than one wife. Look, in verse 8, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. So now what we have to do here, we have to look at this from a different perspective other than what somebody else told us, or when someone wants to conveniently run here to try to prove something, so they can win some type of argument on the streets. The Bible is deeper than this gangbang theology. It's deeper than this. This is a book, like Sis said, critically think, slow down, take your time, and examine what the word is saying.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say that real quick. That's it.
Beautiful. And to go along with the point that we're making, B.A., just a few verses later, in verse 11. Read verse 11, 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 11. Read that real quick, please.
And it reads, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thy own house, and I will take up thy wives before thy eyes, and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of the sun.
Now watch this. So when the Most High said he will give David's wives to David's neighbor, who would then sleep with him, well, this neighbor, right, it turns out to be Absalom, who was David's son. So Absalom, if he was going to sleep with David's wives, was not only adultery, but incest. B.A. So if we're going to say that the Most High giving Saul's wives to David is an endorsement or a condoning or an allowing of polygyny, assuming that David married Saul's wives, then that same reasoning could be used to say that the Most High giving of David's wives to Absalom is an allowance of incest and adultery. So pretty much,
see what happens?
Would you take your time?
Exactly. Will you critically think and examine?
Critically think and examine. Now, David could not have married Saul's wives because, in addition to pretty much violating the commandment against polygyny, Leviticus 18 and 18, he'd also be violating a law against incest himself. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 14. Actually, let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 50. But before you read that, let me go to actually point to what I'm saying here. 2 Samuel chapter 16, verses 8 to 22. You can see the whole narrative of how Absalom went against David. Now, Absalom went against his father David.
Yeah, that was crucial. That was real crucial.
Yeah, let's read a little bit of that. I'm gonna read a little bit of it before you read 1 Samuel 14 and 50, because 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 50 is going to show that David was not giving Saul's wives. But check this out. 2 Samuel chapter 16, verse 8. The Lord hath returned upon thee all the blood of the house of Saul, in whose stead thou hast reigned, and the Lord hath delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom thy son, and behold, thou art taken in thy mischief, because thou art a bloody man. Then said Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, unto the king, why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. And the king said, what have I to do with you, you sons of Zeruiah? So let him curse, because the Lord hath said unto him, curse David. Who shall then say, wherefore hast thou done so? And David said to Abishai and to all his servants, behold, my son which came forth of my bowels seeketh my life. How much more now may this Benjamite do it? Let him alone, and let him curse, for the Lord hath bidden him. It may be that the Lord will look on mine affliction, and that the Lord will will requite me good for his person this day. And as David and his men went by the way, Shimei went along on the hillside over against him, and cursed as he went, and threw stones at him, and cast dust. And the king and all the people that were with him came weary and refreshed themselves there. And Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel with him. And it came to pass, when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, was come unto Absalom, that Hushai said unto Absalom, God save the king. God save the king. And Absalom said to Hushai, is this thy kindness to thy friend? Why wentest thou not with thy friend? And Hushai said to Absalom, nay, but whom the Lord and this people and all the men of Israel choose, his will I be, and with him will I abide. And again, whom should I serve? Should I not serve in the presence of his son? As I have served in thy father's presence, so will I be in thy presence. Then said Absalom to Ahithophel, give counsel among you what we shall do. Verse 21. And Ahithophel said unto Absalom, go in unto thy father's concubine, which he hath left to keep the house, and all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. Verse 22, so they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went in unto his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. This neighbor, right? In 2 Samuel chapter 12, this neighbor who God would give, David's wife turned out to be David's son Absalom.
Man.
Absalom sleeping with David's wife was not only adultery, but incest.
Absalom's a terrorist. He really envied his father. He really did.
The Most High did not endorse Absalom to do incest and adultery. So this is not Most High giving David's wives to David's neighbor. Let me say, if we're going to say that the Most High's giving of Saul's wives to David is condoning polygyny, assuming that David married Saul's wives, then the same reasoning could be used to say that the Most High's giving of David's wives to Absalom is an allowance of incest and adultery. So what we're going to say is David could not have married Saul's wives, because the Most High is against incest. Read 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 50, B.A.
And it reads, and the name of Saul's wife was Naomi, the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the captain of his host was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. Keep going.
Nope. All right. So 1 Samuel 14. The name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. The name of the captain of his host was Abner, son of Ner, Saul's uncle. Right? So, one of Saul's wives was Ahinoam, who was the mother of David's wife, Michal. Right? When you look at 1 Samuel chapter 14, what you say, B.A.?
You keep going. Keep going.
Right? Ahinoam, H293, Ahinoam, right? The word means my brother is delight. Now, check this out. One definition is the wife of Saul, daughter of Ahiman. Another definition is wife of David, mother of Amnon, a Jezreelite. There's two women in here named Ahinoam, right? But one of Saul's wives was Ahinoam, and Ahinoam was the mother of David's wife, Michal. In Leviticus 18, right, we see a passage in there, the one up above 17, the one up above 18, which is 17, right? It prohibits one to be with their mother-in-law, right?
Wow.
Go ahead, B.A. Go ahead, B.A.
Now, I know for individuals who may have come to and use David as an example, they wouldn't dare fix their lips and say that David was messing around with his mother-in-law. I know
not even
for a
messing
fact,
around for you.
married to her and took her as a wife. I know for a fact they wouldn't fix their lips and say that. You wouldn't dare say that for the sake of saving face or saving your doctrine for your followers. You wouldn't dare do it. Go ahead, sis.
Right? Right? So, this example that people try to use to try to support polygyny, it doesn't give any support that the Most High approved polygyny. Last argument, we'll see people talking about, the Most High himself was a polygynist. They're based on Ezekiel 23, VA. In Ezekiel 23,
wow.
right? Ezekiel 23, we know it's an allegory. The Most High, allegory. The Most High, when he's married to two sisters, represents the divided kingdom of Israel. Ohala, and that represents Samaria, and Oholibah represents Jerusalem. So the symbolic union or covenant between the Most High and Israel, it was long before Israel was divided into two kingdoms. But when we see Ezekiel 37, the Valley of the Dry Bones, we see that these two kingdoms are going to reunite as one being. So, the Most High and Israel's relationship or covenant or marriage is monogamous, just like Genesis 2 and 24 says foundationally. And the two shall become one flesh. Let's read in the KJV, Genesis 2 and 24.
Genesis 2 and 24?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we have all read this one. All right. Genesis 2 and Dub 4. I'll just read 25 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. They were both naked. I just read that.
Go ahead. Okay.
And
yes,
they
one
were
flesh.
One flesh. Akkad, united.
Yes, we're a fallen people. The Most High works through a fallen people who have a fallen nature and who have the ability, the capacity to sin or transgress. But transgressing does not, these stories where people transgress and there's no verbatim punishment here does not mean that we can just go ahead and say the Most High allows us to do this because there's no direct verbatim said punishment here for these things. But the Most High does have to, like in Deuteronomy 21, like we said, we see the Most High having to protect the right of the firstborn. The firstborn, if there was a polygynous relationship, the firstborn of the woman who was less loved would gain the inheritance because, in these types of relationships, there's some favoritism here, which is not supposed to happen either. Right? Favoritism is not supposed to happen, so the Most High had to protect people in case this happened because what? He knows our rebellion. He knows our hard hearts and our stiff neck. Pondering polygyny. Does regulate equal endorse? Shan-T has seen, with the help of the Most High and the Holy Spirit through the text here, that no, polygyny is not endorsed just because we see it regulated here. All praise be to the Most High. All praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh, our Father, our Elohim, our power, our deity. I hope you were edified. I hope you gained some insight. I hope you want to, go back and take this information, provoke you to critically think, in prayer, meditation. Critically think. Begin to just take your time, simmer down, and go through things granularly, bit by bit, piece by piece, morsel by morsel. Right? Look at your personal bias. Look at your personal worldviews. Set those to the side when you're looking at this culture, trying to understand this culture from its time. Understand the Most High's characteristics. Get to know the Most High's character. The Most High's character, he's trying to set himself apart, show his holiness. Then he's trying to make sure we are able to make sure the character of the Most High is distinguished from other deities, other nations. Thank you, Sal, for letting me be on. I and Brother B.A., thank you, B.A., for being on and reading. And, that's pretty much what I have to say here. B.A., if you got any last words, and, then I'll close with the priestly ironic blessing. But if we do have any other callers, you can come on in and say what you got to say, comment, question, lay out some concerns. We do not mind. We're never above correction. Let me say that. We're never above correction. However, if you're going to come with some correction, please don't come with an opinion, some conjecture, some rhetoric. Come with some sources. Come with some articles, some peer-reviewed scholars, something like that. You know what I mean? We definitely love to build, like B.A. said. We can definitely come together and reason, and if we're off track, we'll ask for forgiveness and be corrected, no doubt. But 563-999-3674, 563-999-3674. Press the 1 to talk.
Yeah. By the way, we do have someone pressing number 1 whenever you guys are ready.
Oh, okay. You can go ahead and let them in.
Oh, I guess they took themselves off. Oh, they put themselves back on. All right, 518, you're live. 518.
Hi, how you doing? Praise the Lord. This is LaDonna.
What up, Sis LaDonna?
How you doing? Am I echoing? Do I need to turn some off?
Oh, no, you're not echoing now, but you're good.
No,
okay.
Yeah, you're fit
okay,
like the rest of the whistle, sis. Was good.
How you doing? God bless. I just wanted to say, hey, hi, Sal. This is LaDonna. I just want to apologize for sending you a mean message last year. I don't know if you remember or care, but I wrote you a really mean message, and I just wanted to apologize. Also, I caught the tailwind of your discussion, and I just wanted to say you guys did an excellent job. I don't know if you guys are going to have the reception because you already know how Israelites are. People are going to want to hear what they want to hear. But I will contribute this one thing. Just like how you said, just because all things are lawful doesn't mean that they're expedient. Divorce is also legal in the scriptures, but they don't want to talk about that.
Oh, come on.
And there's lots of grounds for divorce in the scriptures. They don't want to hear about them grounds, though. I don't see anybody parsing out divorce, but they do want to acquire a second and a third. But I'm just sitting in the back, minding my business. I will be utilizing the divorce scriptures if anybody would try to suppress me with polygyny. Oh man,
whatever's convenient to pleasure the flesh, man. That's what it tends to seem like when it comes to certain individuals.
Oh, sure. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are supporting polygyny, and I don't want to say things that may offend them. So, but I do think that the practice is not as what a lot of people try to present it, like this beautiful life thing. No, it's not. It's the Bible would have. God is sovereign. He would have given a scripture of some sort of positivity based around it. Every example in scripture shows it to be a hot mess. And I yield.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about it, Sister LaDonna, is that when it comes to me and the Shan-T, we're not very well liked in the Israelite community. They don't like us very much. So we're used to it. We put out information, and even to this day, people just don't want to believe it. They kick against it, but they don't ever want to bring out no sources. All they want to do is run their mouth, run their mouth, run their mouth, run their mouth. That's all we hear. So that's why we always tell people, bring your sources. That's reason, but I'm not for the reason with someone's emotions. I just can't do it. That's too much. That's a tall task. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, but yeah.
Hey, add to the list. Add to the list. Some of the Christian apologists don't like being a Shan-T either.
Oh,
we didn't call wind of that.
Gosh.
You know, even though we could. You know what I'm saying? They got something against BA and I because
nobody likes me the master, so we in good company.
Hey man, when it comes to the apologists, I don't take them serious. But to be honest, I don't even follow these individuals. But recently, it was brought to my attention that I'm all in everybody's post. I don't even know these people. I don't know none of these people. I've never met them. Don't know them, but my name is ringing bells. Ashanti's name is ringing bells. I've never talked to these people. I don't know who these people are. I'm being called all kinds of names in the book. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
We know who some of the people are, DA. You know what I'm saying? We know who some of the people are.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, some of them we know, but then you have other ones. I'm like, hold on, who are you? Where did you come from? Really?
Yeah, I've had my fair share of the Israelite and apologetics community myself. Sister Shan-T knows. We've compared notes. We've gotten run-ins with a lot of the same people, the same brethren. I'm gonna curb my tongue. I was gonna say something else.
We compare notes, and that's what we do. Like when we come together. And with like-minded people such as yourself or BA, you know, who come with resources, who come with scholarly peer-reviewed articles and archaeology. We look at these things. We're looking at the grammar. We're looking at idioms. We're looking at euphemisms. We're not just coming with our opinion, rhetoric, and conjecture and our personal worldview and bias. We're looking at historians. We're looking at these artifacts here. We're looking at history. You know what I'm saying? We're looking at different encyclopedia inserts and things like that. This is what we do, and that's what we look at when we bring first century CE information as well. We bring out the Mishnah and the Talmud, not so that people can adhere to it, but to see the perception and the mindset and the ideology of the certain different sects that existed during the time of the first century CE majorly, right? So these are all things to take into account when you're trying to understand the text. Right? That's what me and BA do, and that's why people be like, man, we don't really appreciate them because these are the steps, and this is what Ron would say, the methodology that we use. You know what I mean? We're going into these courses and these peer-reviewed scholars, and you know, because you're in school for this. This is what you do. Like you said, you would be great to go to school to challenge academia. Well, if we're going to be scholars and academics here, and if we're going to be honest, there's a certain, procedures and information and articles and resources we have to pull out, right? Okay.
Yes, there's a certain modus operandi that we have to, subject ourselves to, and we have to be able to produce information based on standards. Sometimes I think the standards are biased, but in this regard, the standards are necessary because we're dealing with a lot of people who want to make up YouTube doctrine. I mean, we had one brother that what he say? David is going, the seed of David is flying in the sky. That sounds like GMS doctrine. I mean, people are just making up anything. I'm extra. People just making up everything and anything and putting Jesus on it and putting the Bible on, or Yahshua rather, and putting that on it, and people will anything that seems off to what is tradition, they're going to do just because it's different than what is practiced in the Christian church. And just because it's different than what is practiced in the Christian church doesn't mean that it is right or correct. A lot of things that are being practiced in so quote-unquote Israelite culture that they think is adverse to Christian culture is completely unbiblical. And I'm going to just leave it at that because, like I said, I'm the masmer. I don't get to talk anyway. So... You just going to the white man's school with your white man's blood. Yeah. I mean, I don't got time for that.
hey, Sister Lazada, they tell me I'm not Hebrew enough.
Well, I mean, it is what it is.
It
is what it is. I'm done with that. I'm a daughter of Yah through Messiah. That's all I need. That's who I need. I don't need any more validation anymore. Or blood quantum, and start posting pictures of dead ancestors so these people could feel okay with what I look like. I can't help that. It's not about me. It's about the will of God and doing His will and whomever. And y'all are doing the will of God. Y'all keep continuing. There are people listening, maybe don't want to call in or maybe don't have nothing to contribute, but people are listening, and don't worry, God is utilizing you to convict people's hearts. Don't feel no type of way. Your work is not for naught.
Hallelujah.
So God bless you. And I got another paper to work on. I'm listening. I got 19 papers, girl. It's 2 weeks before finals, or 2 weeks or a week into finals. So, doing these finals. So pray for me, girl. Y'all have a blessed night.
You too, sis. Lala Tov. Thanks for calling in.
Peace to you.
Lala Tov.
Sal, we got any more callers?
No, nobody else pressed number one at this time, but we got people listening to the show. You know the number, 563-999-3674, 563-999-3674. We appreciate the callers out there, the listeners out there that's checking out the show. By the way, if you didn't know, the show is on iTunes. All the shows is archived. You're going to go to YouTube, check it out. Blog Talk Radio archives the show as well, so make sure you keep up with us on everything social media, Debate Talk for you. Nobody else is pressing number one at this time. Oh, we got somebody pressing number one. Stand by. Let's go to 510. You're live.
Hey, what's up, peace, y'all?
Brother Vinny.
Oh, not much. Looking forward to the gathering.
Yeah, that's on my mind.
Yeah, but I just want to say, you guys, you presented a really good case. I mean, I'm not one to endorse polygyny myself. I don't really rock with it, and I don't really like if my daughter was talking about she wanted to go marry some other dude that has like other wives, and I'll be real iffy about that, and I wouldn't like it at all. But I don't really study it like that, pretty much because I'm not really into it. But it is a real hot topic, I see. But yeah, man, it's like you presented a really good case, and I'm gonna go look into it now because before before the stuff that you brought out, especially with the different translations. And you already know how I feel about these translations and how people perceive what these verses say.
Right.
Just based on like studies that I do myself.
Mm-hmm.
And even with some of the grammar, but
yep.
I think you presented a really good case, and I'm gonna have to go back to the books because I remember when I said something out against somebody, I actually called into the last debate where Carl and Brother Robert Reed was on there,
Uh-huh.
and I basically just said, if it's not in the laws, then we're not supposed to be adding or taking away from it, right?
Mm.
So I mean, I don't endorse it, but at the same time, you got me thinking a little bit more, but I'm definitely gonna have to go back and check it out because I did step to somebody a while ago about polygyny, and they kind of said some things that in favor of it, and I couldn't really rebut it,
Mm.
So I just kind of had to concede at that time, but you brought out some new stuff, so I'm just gonna have to go back to the drawing board and look back into it, and then I'll probably we'll probably discuss it during this Feast of Tabernacles, God willing,
Yep.
But but I'm go ahead, sir.
No, I said we could definitely do that. Vinny, we could talk before then too, and I got notes. I didn't use all the passages of references I could have, but if you want more of that I didn't share, I would definitely send those too.
Yeah, but
yeah,
we'll see you the notes, man. So because we know you study too, brother.
Oh yeah,
man.
We got to get it right.
Man. Most deaf.
We've been lied to for so long, man. I think everybody is just trying to get it right now, and like the last us just said, it's a lot of resentment toward Christianity, and we just try to separate ourselves completely.
Yeah.
Even if some of the things that they say is right, you know what I'm saying? So we got a lot of work to do.
I think a lot of it is reactionary. Just like with a lot of the pro-black doctrines, I think it's a reaction to white supremacy. That's just my opinion.
Right. No, I agree.
Another thing too, when it comes to the polygamy, we see culturally on that side of the planet that was common amongst the nations outside of Israel who they lived among the time. We see that was common amongst the nations. So I like to put this into perspective. Israel, a chosen people, set apart by Hashem to represent Him and to introduce His kingdom. And what was Israel's problem? Always wanting to be like the nations. We saw it clearly in 1 Samuel chapter 8. So when I'm looking at it is, in the Middle East, on that side of the planet, it was just common within those different cultures, in those different kingdoms, or those different nations of people, to have more than one wife. But just because it was good for them doesn't mean it was good for the Most High's people, because He took them, separated them, and He said, I brought you unto my bosom. I bore you on eagle's wings when He pulled them out of Egypt. So now we have to critically look at things. I understand that the brothers want to be different and be set apart and bring something brand new. I understand it, because when our people, we've been oppressed for so long, when we got hold of something and we just want to hold on to it and interject ourselves and our ways into every facet of what we just come across, this Bible. So I understand, but just because I understand doesn't mean I agree. I do understand it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really fault the brothers, but at the same time, I just ask the brothers and the sisters too, because this is more than just talking about polygyny. There's a whole bunch of doctrines, a whole different types of lifestyles that we're choosing to live. Critically examine the text. And why? How do we do that? How do we show proof? By establishing our own personal relationship with the Most High God. You know what I'm saying? And another thing I've noticed, because I used to fall for this, we're reading the text with other people's eyes. That is a major problem. We have to learn how to set some time for ourselves or set time with the Most High one-on-one and do some reading and some studying and some meditation with him and him only, not with yada yada and company. And with that, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, man, especially when you said we read the text with other people's eyes, you know. And I know, I don't know if I've had that conversation with you, BA, but I know I have with Sis about, like, all these commentaries and, like, how people always talk about the scholars and this and that. You know, I don't really try to deal with them too much because I know that they have their own, they interject their own, you know, opinions. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't look at them and read them, but at the same time, I know that they interject, you know, what their feelings is, and they have their own personal bias. I mean, just as human beings, it's kind of hard to separate your opinion from a fact. You know what I'm saying? So.
Oh yeah, I agree, brother. I agree. I mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, one thing about me, even though I like sources, I love sources. And I credit brothers like there's three individuals. First was Shan-T. You know what I'm saying? Shan-T used to give me homework assignments, and I used to be like, oh gosh. And then brothers like Ron Divine, you know what I'm saying? Ron Shields, he was another brother that provoked me to step my game up as far as sources. And there was another brother, he studies Halakha. His name is Brother Kyle Ajak. He was another brother who provoked me and challenged me to pull out more sources. So I'm all about bringing out historical information, articles, encyclopedias, books, etc. But at the same time, I just don't fully 100% put my stock into them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those sources are good to have because they bring out a lot of stuff in the scriptures that we don't see. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's very important that we don't put 100% stock into them because sometimes some of the scholars and some of these guys who write these sources, they do have some type of narrative they may want to push. So I do agree.
Yeah, I would add to that. With anybody, you have to vet them. You have to vet the source. You have to vet the individuals. You have to, sometimes look at their credentials. Sometimes look at their history. Sometimes look at their beliefs. Look at sometimes how they go about researching their methodology, things of that nature. When I go into a lot of first century CE history, Brother Vinny, I see like the same 4 or 5 individuals being mentioned in a plethora of different bibliographies when I look at these sources. I vet these sources, and a lot of the same names come up. You know what I mean? Like I said, E.P. Sanders is one. N.T. Wright is another. Mark Nanos. There's a couple of others. The one Jacob Neusner. I mean, you start running into the same names over and over again. Oh, and Bruce Winter. You start running into these same names over and over again, especially when you're looking at a subject matter to hone in on and really get the particulars. You vet. And a lot of times when you look at these sources, they actually complement each other. That's how I be vetting a lot of these authors, historians, theologians, archaeologists, and historians of the Talmud. That's how I vet these people. That's what I mean by peer review as well. If that helps, yeah. But not only vetting them, but just using some discernment. And asking the Most High for wisdom when you're looking at these people. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say yeah. I mean, I do, but if me and you talk, I don't really need no sources. If you talk like this tonight, if you say something that sounds like it, it could be the case. Guess what? I'm gonna go look at it. I'm gonna go search this, like the Bereans. What the Bereans say, they went and searched the scripts to see if what Paul was saying was right.
Hallelujah.
you know, you gotta. I don't have no pride in this. You know, I just want to get it right. That's all. You know, and but yeah, definitely, I will have some questions. I'm at work right now, so trying to get this stuff knocked out because I got a long day, another long day, and I just want to get done with this. Can't wait to kick back and be like, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, but I mean, you brought out a strong case, man. You definitely did your due diligence, and I'm definitely gonna go look back at some scenes, and then I'll definitely get back to you guys with some with some questions that I have.
No, sure thing. We'll be waiting to chat with you, Bill, with you.
All right, God willing, man. Y'all have a good night. Peace, Sal. Peace, BA. Peace, sis.
Peace. Thanks for calling in, Lala Tove. All right. Sal, we got any more callers?
Everybody just listen to the show. We appreciate the family out there that's calling in. Once again, the number's 563-999-3674. By the way, for those people that just joined in, today's show is entitled Pondering, Polygyny, Does Regulate Equal Endorse? That's the topic of the show. It's the second quarter with your host Shan-T and Brother B.A. All right, so nobody else is person number one at this time, so I guess we can get some last words. Go ahead.
All right. I have my last words, so B.A., go ahead, my brother, please.
No, I'm good, sis. We can close it out. And much love to all. Praise the Most High.
Welcome to the planet of debates. Debate Talk Free Radio.
Help keep the show on the air. If you want to help, you can send your donation through PayPal. The email is debatetalkforyou@gmail.com or through Cash App, $SALSHOWTIME. Thanks for your support.